I welcome you to my channel. Subscribe and listen to my new stories every day. It was a regular Wednesday evening, the kind where nothing exciting ever happens. I sat in front of my computer, casually scrolling through emails, most of which were junk, discount offers, newsletters I never signed up for, and the usual spam. Just as I was about to shut it down for the night, an email from an unfamiliar address caught my eye. The subject line read, "You deserve to know the truth." At first glance, it seemed like one of those phishing scams. Probably a shady attempt to extort money or spread malware. Still, something made me hesitate. Maybe it was the bluntness of the subject line, or maybe it was the gut feeling that something was off. My curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked on it. The message that unfolded was not what I expected. It wasn't a request for money, nor was it a link to some shady website. Instead, the email was short, simple, and painfully direct. "I'm sorry you have to find out this way, but your wife has been cheating on you. Attached are the photos you need to see." They were sent by someone she thought she could trust, but turns out, they didn't need him anymore. Now, he wants you to know the truth. I stared at the words on the screen, my brain frozen for a moment. Cheating? My wife? No way. We had our ups and downs like any other couple, but infidelity was the last thing I expected. For a moment, I hovered my mouse over the attachment, considering whether or not to open it. Maybe it was some kind of sick joke, maybe it was a virus waiting to corrupt my system. But as doubt crept in, the weight of suspicion pressed against my chest. I clicked. A series of photos appeared, and with each one, my heart sank lower. There she was, my wife, half naked, her laughter frozen in time, caught in moments of intimacy with some guy I didn't recognize. It wasn't just one or two pictures, it was a series, each more damning than the last. In one, she was sprawled out on a hotel bed, sheets tangled around her legs. In another, they were kissing at what looked like some kind of private party. And then there was the worst one, a close-up of their faces, flushed with excitement, no shame, no guilt. It took a few minutes for the reality to sink in. This wasn't just some random mistake. The lighting, the clarity, the familiarity of my wife's expressions, it was all too real. My hands began to tremble, and my breath quickened. I could feel the blood rushing to my head, a cocktail of rage and disbelief swirling inside me. Then, below the images, came the explanation. They didn't need me anymore. The three of us had been having fun for a while, but recently, they decided I was just an extra. She picked him, and now I'm out of the picture. But if I'm not going to have them, neither will you. Consider this my goodbye gift. Good luck. The message was signed with only a single initial, J. Whoever he was, it didn't matter. The damage was done. I slammed my fist on the desk, my vision blurring with a mix of fury and heartbreak. I had no idea my wife had been involved in something like this. A part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to storm into the living room and demand answers. But instead, I just sat there, paralyzed by the betrayal. My mind kept replaying the images, the words of that email, the truth I couldn't run from. For the next few hours, I couldn't think straight. I kept going back to the photos, as if some hidden detail would make them less real. I scrolled through them again and again, searching for something that would make sense of this nightmare, but all I found was more pain. The rage inside me kept building, a fire that wouldn't be put out easily. That night, I couldn't even look at her. She sat in the living room, watching some mindless TV show, completely oblivious to the storm brewing just a few feet away. I wanted to scream at her, demand an explanation, but the words wouldn't come. How do you even begin to address something like this? How do you confront someone you've shared your life with, knowing they've been living a lie behind your back? The next morning, I called in sick to work. I couldn't face the world, not yet. Instead, I started planning. I knew I couldn't let this slide, couldn't just confront her and let her talk her way out of it. She needed to feel the same betrayal, the same pain that I was drowning in. Revenge, sweet and slow, started to take form in my mind. If she could betray me so easily, I could destroy everything she cared about. I needed a plan, something that wouldn't just end with a screaming match or some petty argument. I wanted her to regret everything. And as the day dragged on, the ideas began to take shape. I would ruin her life, just like she had ruined mine. I would expose her, make her feel the shame of her actions, and then I would leave her, just like she had emotionally left me. But first, I needed more. I needed more evidence, more pieces of the puzzle to craft the perfect revenge. The betrayal was real, and I wasn't going to let it go. Not now. Not ever. The beginning of this story sets the stage for a tangled web of betrayal and revenge, leaving the reader eager to see how the protagonist will carry out his plan of retribution. The next few days were a blur. Every time I saw my wife, a wave of nausea hit me. She continued with her routine, blissfully unaware of the email that had shattered my trust in her. Mornings felt the worst. She would smile, make coffee, and talk about her day as if everything was normal. Each word from her mouth sounded like a lie, a betrayal wrapped in familiarity. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers, and the time for planning was over. It was Friday evening when I finally decided to confront her. She was sitting at the dining table, typing away on her laptop. I stood in the doorway, watching her, feeling the coldness between us that she couldn't even sense. My mind kept replaying the images from the email, her with that man, laughing, touching, betraying me. "Hey," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady, though my heart was pounding in my chest. She glanced up, smiling, completely oblivious to the storm about to hit. "Hey. I'm just finishing up some work. What's up?" I walked over slowly, pulling out my phone from my pocket. I didn't speak for a moment, just looked at her. My silence must have unnerved her, because she finally closed her laptop, giving me her full attention. "Is something wrong?" I didn't answer her question directly. Instead, I tossed the phone onto the table in front of her, the screen already displaying the damning photos. "Explain this." Her smile vanished in an instant. She stared at the screen, her face draining of color. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the phone, scrolling through the images. For a moment, I almost felt pity for her, almost. I don't know what this is," she stammered, her voice weak. Her eyes shot up to meet mine, wide and pleading, but there was no denying the truth now. She knew it. I knew it. "Don't lie to me," I said, my voice low and dangerously calm. "I've seen the photos. I've read the email. How long has this been going on?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but they only made me angrier. How dare she cry after what she did? How dare she act like the victim when she had destroyed everything we built? "It's not what you think," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I can explain, please." "Explain." I barked out a laugh, but it was harsh, devoid of any humor. "You've been screwing around behind my back, and you want to explain? What's there to explain, huh? How you decided to humiliate me, betray me, destroy our marriage." She stood up, the chair scraping against the floor as she tried to approach me. "No, listen, it's not like that. I wasn't." "Stop lying." I snapped, stepping back from her as if her very presence disgusted me. "I know everything. The guy you dumped. He sent me those photos. All of them. He told me how you and your little lover cut him out of your fun. Did you think I wouldn't find out? That you could keep this secret forever?" Her lip trembled as she tried to say something, but nothing came out. She was caught, and she knew it. For a brief moment, I thought I saw regret in her eyes, but it was too late for that. Whatever remorse she had, it wouldn't save her from the consequences. "Why?" I demanded, my voice quieter now, but no less furious. "Why would you do this to us? She looked down at the floor, wiping away the tears that had begun to spill down her cheeks. I didn't mean for this to happen. Didn't mean for it to happen. I repeated, incredulous. What, you just tripped and fell into his bed? She shook her head, her tears flowing freely now. It wasn't like that. I didn't mean to hurt you. I swear, I never wanted to. I don't care what you wanted. I interrupted, slamming my hand on the table. The noise echoed in the quiet room, and she flinched. You didn't mean to hurt me. Well, guess what, you did. You tore everything apart. Do you have any idea what you've done? I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, I said, my voice cold and unforgiving. Sorry doesn't erase what you did. For a few moments, there was only silence between us. She stood there, shaking, while I tried to calm the rage that threatened to consume me. I had to think clearly. I had to be smart about this. Revenge, real revenge, wasn't going to come from shouting matches or apologies. I had something bigger in mind. I'm leaving, I said finally, my tone devoid of any emotion. Her head snapped up, panic flashing in her eyes. What? No, please. We can fix this, I can fix this. She reached out to grab my arm, but I pulled away from her, not wanting her touch. There's nothing to fix, I said, glaring at her. You broke it. And now you're going to live with the consequences. Please, don't do this, she begged, her voice cracking. I love you. I laughed again, shaking my head. Love? Don't insult me. Whatever this is, it isn't love. Her sobs grew louder as she crumpled into the chair, burying her face in her hands. I watched her for a moment, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. This wasn't how things were supposed to end. But the damage was done, and there was no going back now. I'll be back for my things, I said, heading toward the door. But don't worry, you'll be hearing from my lawyer soon enough. I left without another word, slamming the door behind me. The cool night air hit my face, but it did little to calm the fury boiling inside me. As I walked down the street, my mind raced with thoughts of how to destroy her. Divorce would be just the beginning. She didn't deserve a clean break. No, I was going to make sure she felt every ounce of pain she had caused me. And when I was done, she would be left with nothing but regret. This was just the start. The tension builds in this chapter, as the protagonist confronts his wife with the undeniable proof of her betrayal. The confrontation escalates into a heartbreaking and intense exchange, setting the stage for the protagonist's calculated revenge in future chapters. The apartment felt too quiet. I sat in the dim light of my temporary space, a small one-bedroom rental far from the life I once knew. The first few days after leaving my wife had been a blur of anger and confusion. Now, sitting alone in the echo of my own thoughts, the rage simmered just beneath the surface. The betrayal cut deeper with each moment, each memory of her smile, her lies, twisting the knife she'd planted in my back. But I wasn't going to drown in this. No, I had a plan now, a plan to make her feel every ounce of the hurt she'd given me. Divorce wasn't enough. I needed her to suffer like I had. To lose everything, to feel that her whole world was crumbling, just like mine had the moment I opened that email. I stared at my phone, my finger hovering over the contact list. There was someone who could help with this. A friend of mine, Jake, wasn't the kind of guy who asked too many questions. He was resourceful, knew how to find things like information, like secrets. It didn't take long to dial his number. The phone rang twice before Jake picked up. "Hey, man," he answered, his voice casual, but I could hear the surprise. We hadn't spoken in months. "What's up?" I leaned back, trying to sound calm, even though my chest tightened with every word. "Jake, I need a favor." There was a pause on the other end, the kind where you could feel the person sizing up the situation. What kind of favor? I took a breath, feeling the weight of what I was about to say. I need you to find out everything you can about someone. I'm talking real dirt, anything that could blow up their life. Another silence, this time longer. When he finally spoke, Jake's voice was quieter, more serious. This about your wife? Ex-wife, I corrected, though the divorce papers were still in the works. Yeah. Her and the guy she's been screwing around with. Jake let out a low whistle. Damn, man. You sure you want to go down this road? I didn't hesitate. Absolutely. All right, Jake said. Send me their names, whatever details you've got. I'll see what I can dig up. I hung up the phone, my heart racing. The wheels were in motion now. This was more than just getting back at her. This was about taking control of a situation that had blindsided me, about reclaiming the power she had stolen from me. I needed to know who this guy was, how deep this went, and I wanted to hit them where it hurt the most. A few days later, I got the text from Jake. Meet me at the usual place. The usual place was an old bar on the outskirts of town, a hole in the wall that we used to frequent when we were younger, back when life felt simpler. When I arrived, Jake was already sitting at a booth in the corner, nursing a beer. His face was grim as I approached. You got something? I asked, sliding into the seat across from him. Jake nodded and pulled out a manila envelope, sliding it across the table. I dug up more than I expected. The guy she's been seeing, his name's Sean, right? I clenched my jaw. Yeah. What about him? Well, Jake began, leaning in, he's not just some random guy. Turns out he's got a history of shady business deals, and worse, he's married too. His wife's a big-shot lawyer. I blinked, surprised. He's married? Yup. And here's the kicker, his wife doesn't have a clue about what he's been up to. Not yet, anyway. My mind raced as I absorbed the information. Sean wasn't just cheating on his wife, he was living a double life, one that could easily unravel if the right pieces fell into place. This wasn't just about my wife anymore. It was bigger than that. I could destroy both of them in one move. Jake continued, his voice low. I got copies of some of his business records. If this stuff goes public, he could lose everything. The guy's involved in some pretty shady dealings, nothing illegal yet, but close enough to ruin his reputation. A slow, vindictive smile spread across my face. Perfect. I opened the envelope and sifted through the documents. There were emails, bank statements, and even photos that showed Sean and my wife together, just as damning as the ones the other guy had sent me. But there was more. One of the photos showed Sean with another woman, a different one, not his wife, not my wife. The man was a serial cheater. I leaned back, feeling the satisfaction that came with having this kind of leverage. You've outdone yourself, Jake. Jake shrugged, taking a sip of his beer. Just be careful, man. You're playing with fire here. I nodded, but I wasn't backing down. The fire had already started, and I wasn't about to let it burn out before it consumed everything in its path. The next few days were all about careful planning. I spent hours combing through the information Jake had given me, piecing together how to strike. I wanted this to be precise, to leave no room for her or Sean to wriggle out of the consequences. First, I drafted an anonymous letter to Sean's wife, detailing his affair with my wife and including some of the photos. I was careful to write it in a way that didn't trace back to me. Then, I set up an anonymous email account to send it. I could already imagine the chaos it would cause in their lives, the shock, the devastation. Sean would be scrambling to save his marriage, just like I had been. But that wasn't enough. I needed more. The second phase of my plan involved his business. I leaked some of the more questionable deals to a few contacts in the media. It wouldn't take long for reporters to start asking questions, digging deeper into his dirty laundry. Sean's professional world would start collapsing around him, and he'd have no one to blame but himself. As I hit send on the email to his wife, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my life. She had taken everything from me, but now I was taking everything from her. The best part? She had no idea what was coming. The tension thickens in this chapter as the protagonist's plan of revenge unfolds. With the help of his friend Jake, he uncovers damning evidence that will not only destroy his wife but also the man she's been seeing. The wheels of retribution are in motion, leaving the reader eager to see how the next steps in the protagonist's calculated plan will unfold. A storm was brewing outside, the rain pounding against the windows of my apartment like the furious thoughts swirling in my mind. Everything was in place now. The letter to Sean's wife had been sent, and the media had begun picking up on his dirty business dealings. I had been following the fallout closely, every move, every headline that came out about his shady investments and crumbling marriage. Soon, it would all come crashing down. But I wasn't done yet. There was still one last piece to this puzzle, one final blow I needed to deliver. My wife. I hadn't confronted her since the night I left. I made sure she stayed in the dark, clueless about the chaos unraveling around her. Tonight would be different. Tonight, I would end it all. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of my jacket, my reflection showing a man unrecognizable from who I used to be. The quiet, patient man who had once trusted his wife was gone. In his place was someone ruthless, someone who had been broken and now wanted to break in return. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Jake. Sean's wife found out. It's hitting the fan. He's done. I felt a dark satisfaction rise in my chest. But the night wasn't over yet. I took a deep breath and dialed my wife's number. She picked up on the third ring, her voice hesitant. Hello. It's me, I said, my voice steady, void of any warmth. We need to talk. Meet me at the house in an hour. There was a pause on the other end, the sound of her breathing filling the silence. Oh okay, she finally stammered. I'll be there. I arrived at our old house first, letting myself in with the spare key I hadn't returned. The place was exactly as I had left it, though it felt colder now, emptier. I stood in the living room, looking around at the life we had built together, now nothing but a facade. A few minutes later, I heard the front door creak open, followed by the soft click of her heels on the hardwood floor. She stepped into the room, her eyes puffy, cheeks flushed as if she had been crying. It didn't matter. I had no sympathy left for her. Why did you want to meet? She asked, her voice shaky. She looked fragile, but I didn't care. I took a slow, deliberate step towards her, watching as she tensed. I wanted you to know the truth. The real truth. You see, while you've been sneaking around with Sean, I've been busy. Her eyes widened, confusion and fear flickering across her face. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and held it up, showing her the photos of her and Sean, the same ones I had sent to his wife. Her face drained of color, the blood rushing from her cheeks as she stared at the evidence of her betrayal. How did you get these? She whispered, taking a step back, her hand covering her mouth. That doesn't matter, I said, my voice cold and unforgiving. What matters is that Sean's wife has them too. And the media? They've got everything they need to tear his career apart. She gasped, her hand trembling as she reached out towards me. No, this can't be happening. Why are you doing this? I'm sorry. I made a mistake, but we can fix this, we can. There's nothing to fix, I cut her off, stepping closer until I was inches from her. Do you think I'm just going to forget what you did? After all the lies, the betrayal, the humiliation you put me through? You thought you could get away with it, but you're wrong. I'm going to destroy everything you care about, just like you destroyed me. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and for a moment, I saw the woman I once loved, the one I had promised to spend my life with. But that woman was gone, replaced by a liar and a cheat. I couldn't feel sorry for her now. Not after everything. Please, she begged, her voice breaking. I'll leave Sean. I'll do anything. Just, don't do this. I shook my head slowly. It's too late. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, breaking the heavy silence between us. My wife's eyes darted towards the door, panic flashing across her face. I didn't move. I knew who it was. She hesitated, then rushed to the door, opening it. Standing there, drenched from the rain, was Sean. He looked disheveled, his eyes wide with fear. What the hell's going on? Sean demanded, stepping into the house, his gaze flicking between me and my wife. I've been getting calls all night. My wife, she knows everything. I crossed my arms, watching them with cold amusement. Looks like your little secret's out, Sean. He turned to me, fury in his eyes. You did this, didn't you? You set this whole thing up. I didn't have to do much, I replied coolly. You two handed me all the ammunition I needed. Sean lunged towards me, his fists clenched, but my wife stepped in between us, pushing him back. Stop. This isn't going to solve anything. But Sean wasn't backing down. His face was red, veins bulging from his neck as he glared at me. You think you've won? You think this is over? I'll destroy you for this. I smirked. You've already destroyed yourself. I just gave it a little push. At that moment, the tension snapped. Sean shoved my wife aside and charged at me, his fist flying towards my face. I sidestepped him easily, and he stumbled, crashing into the coffee table. Before he could get up, I grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall, my face inches from his. This is just the beginning, I whispered, my voice low and menacing. I've ruined your career, your marriage, and I'm not done yet. You're going to lose everything, just like I did. I let go, and he collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. My wife knelt beside him, sobbing, but I didn't care. I had done what I came to do. I turned to leave, but before I stepped out into the rain, I glanced back at them one last time. The sight of them, broken and defeated, should have made me feel triumphant. But instead, there was an emptiness inside me, a hollow ache that no amount of revenge could fill. As I walked out of the house and into the storm, I realized the tragic truth. I had won, but in the end, we had all lost. There was no victory in betrayal, only destruction. And now, all that was left was the wreckage of lives torn apart by lies. We would never see each other again, and maybe that was the cruelest revenge of all.